Have you ever had one of those dreams that you just can't wake up from? One of those dreams where you swear it's 100% real, and it's so vivid that for weeks and weeks after the dream, you can't really decide whether or not it actually happened. I remember the night really well. I was in college. I was living in a really nice dorm room with a really nice roommate, and he happened to be away for the weekend, so I had my brother come in, who lived only about 25 minutes away. And we stayed up really late and watched a lot of scary movies and got ourselves totally freaked out, and I think that's what put me in the mindset to actually have this dream. My mom was supposed to come pick up my brother, but it was pouring, cats and dogs, the hardest rain we'd had in a long time, thunder and lightning. And my mom calls my phone and says, I'm not gonna be able to make it. The roads are flooding and I can't get the car through this puddle. I don't think it's safe. You guys just stay there. I'll come and get him in the morning. So we're like, fine, that's great. A little brotherly sleepover. So I lay down to go to sleep and I can't. I don't know if I was having too much fun or I was too scared from the movies, I don't know. The way the room is laid out, we had cinder block walls that were painted white, and the ceiling was cement, painted white, and the floor was white, but we had a rug. The door to get into the room was here, and then we had my bed, the bed my brother was sleeping on, and the window. And the window had these really crappy shades that didn't close all the way, and the worst part about the dorm room was right outside the window. There was a street lamp. And as I'm laying there, I look over the clock and it's 2:30, and I'm thinking like, man, I'm just gonna be trash tomorrow and I have acting class and I wanna do this and I wanna do that. This is causing some anxiety and I'm getting nervous and uncomfortable and I didn't really know why. And this went on for another half hour. So I look at the clock and realize it's 3 o'clock. And the reason I looked at the clock that time was because it was getting brighter. And the street lamp outside the window kind of looked a little bit more like the sun was coming up. But it couldn't have been coming up because it was 3 in the morning. And I look over and my brother's in his bed sleeping. And this light seems to just ever so slowly be getting brighter and brighter and brighter. So I thought maybe a delivery truck came by because we were on the first floor. It was a little higher than a truck would be, but if it was maybe across the parking lot, or maybe its headlights were shining in and that was confusing me. And normally I would get up and look, but I couldn't move my body. And I was laying there on my back, with my hands at my side, and all I could do was just tilt my head a little bit. And so obviously this starts to freak me out. I'm very claustrophobic. I found this out the other week, which sounds dumb, but my whole life I never thought I was claustrophobic because I can be in smaller places, I just don't like being stuck. Being stuck freaks me out. I cannot handle scenes in movies where people get stuck. The Descent, didn't care about the monsters. I cared about when they were climbing through the little thing and they got stuck. 128 Hours, whichever the one is, with James Franco. Terrifying. I hate being stuck. And so I was riding in the car with someone the other day and they were like, dude, that's called claustrophobia. And I was like, huh, never knew that. So being a claustrophobic person, being pinned to this bed, paralyzed, not being able to move, except for a little bit of my chin to be able to look out the window, I was completely terrified. And this light is just getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And then it seems to almost pierce the window, but without breaking it, just sort of penetrate and start filling the room with light. And it started turning into this weird kind of light, without color, without any sort of real life feel to it. The only way I can think of explaining it is when you press on your eyes really hard for too long, and you start to see all different kinds of shapes and colors. The room is getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And all of a sudden the white walls and the white ceiling and the white floor seem to be engulfed in this light that seems to be everywhere and just sucking up everything. And coming through the window, the source of the light, almost like an orb, floating into the room and then hovering at the foot of my bed. And it seems then that arms of light or beams of light are coming out of it and searching my body. And it was a physical feeling and a mental feeling and an emotional feeling at the same time, like it was touching every single part of my body, inside and out, massaging my brain, caressing my heart, touching absolutely every pore of my entire body. And meanwhile, I cannot move, just pinned to the bed. The walls and the ceiling are completely gone. I'm just in this infinite light with the orb searching my body. And all of a sudden, all of the light sucks back into the orb, and it's pitch black, and I can move again. And I instantly curl up into a ball at the top of my bed. My eyes are trying to adjust, and I'm looking around the room, and the floor is there, and the walls are there, and my brother is there, and the ceiling is there. Everything is the same. The light outside of the window, the shades. Everything is exactly how it was, with the exception of one thing. A tall, shapeless figure standing on the foot of my bed without making an imprint. And my eyes start to move from its feet all the way up to what seems to be the shape of a head. And as our eyes meet, my body is thrown violently back into the position of paralysis. Exactly the position I was in before. I can't move. I'm stuck, pinned to the bed. Only this time my eyes were stuck, locked with his. And it started to look like the face of an old man. And his mouth was opening, as if to speak, but it kept opening. And suddenly his jaw unhinges, and his mouth starts to pull away, and inside of it is hair. And as the mouth pulls back further and further across what seems to be another head, the face of a crying woman comes out, the teeth of the old man ripping at her flesh as it goes over to the top of her head. And before the man's teeth are completely gone, the woman's eye starts to expand, and her face starts to suck into it. And as her face is sucking into it, the face of an infant, a baby, starts pulling around the side of the face. And this happened over and over and over again, never staying on one face. All of these painful faces, breaking, coming out of each other, going into each other, being eaten, being thrown up, coming out of someone's ear, coming out of someone's eye. Millions of people's faces, real people, morphing one into another in the most painful ways. And as I'm stuck, paralyzed, staring at this thing at the foot of my bed, it speaks.
I am Beelzebub. I have come to take your world from you. I have taken the people you love.
I have consumed their soul.
They belong to me now, as will you. You will be my greatest follower. You will be my favorite.
He explained to me in a living word, a word that was in my ears and in my brain and in my soul simultaneously, that he was taking my world from me and that I would be his greatest follower.
You will worship me.
You will love me. That must be decided.
Not knowing what else to do, not being able to move or look away from this horrible thing, I began to pray a familiar prayer. Oh God, my Father, supremely good, beauty of all things beautiful. And as I was praying, his voice became louder and louder, and I couldn't understand what he was saying anymore. And I continued, to you I will entrust whatsoever I have received from you, and so shall I lose nothing. And then he began to repeat.
And so shall I lose nothing. And so shall I lose nothing. And so shall I lose nothing. And so shall I lose nothing.
And with every sentence came a new face, and with every face came a new voice. And so shall I lose nothing.
And so shall I lose nothing. And so shall I lose nothing.
And that's when I realized that every single one of those faces was the face of someone he had taken, a face of someone whose soul he owned. And I frantically began looking for friends, relatives, people I loved. All the time, him repeating, and so shall I lose nothing. And so shall I lose nothing. And when I realized that I wasn't seeing anyone that I knew, anyone that I loved, my mind quickly went to finishing the prayer. What were those words? What were those words? And so shall I lose nothing.
And so shall I lose nothing.
And finally it came to me. You made me for yourself, and my heart is restless until it rests in you. And suddenly it was silent. And a great light started coming from the eyes of the horrible thing, and it engulfed the entire room, swallowing it in bright light. And then just as before, and I was free to move. And as my eyes adjusted, I realized that it was daylight, and that I was wide awake. And I turned and looked at my clock, and it was 11 a.m., and my phone was buzzing, and it was my mom, saying that the storm was over, and that she was coming to pick up my brother. Right after she picked up my brother, I sat down at my computer and I wrote down all of the details of this dream. And I tried to analyze parts of the dream and figure out exactly why it felt so real. I never remember falling asleep that night. And I never remember waking up. I don't remember moving from my bed. All I remember are those details. I never told my brother, but he never mentioned anything about anything weird happening, and I feel like with that going on, it might be something that you bring up in the morning. So I don't know. Completely unexplainable. I don't know what it means. Well, that's my story for today. Let me know what you think. If you want to hear more of my nightmares, which I've had plenty of and are just as vivid, I would love to share them. But let me know. Let me know if you want me to stick to paranormal things, and let me know if you want me to branch out and tell you all sorts of stories. Either way, I'm really happy you guys are here. If you have any stories of your own, you can write them down in the comments or send me a personal message. Don't forget to check out my new paranormal investigations on Tuesdays, and next week will probably be another surprise, I hope. See ya.